Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to the third episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. It's your co-host TV, aka TV on basketball, alongside my co-host Jay, aka the Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy?
Oh, it's going good. Coming off of an interesting All-Star weekend, but we're heading into the real playoff push in the NBA, bro. I'm excited to talk about some of the stuff ahead.
Yeah, 100%. There's like what, 25, 26 games left in the season. I mean, it's weird because the All-Star feels like the halfway point of the year, but there's only so many games left. So this is like going to be the end stretch of the NBA season. And yes, March Madness is happening next month and stuff, but the NBA is where it's at, especially with the playoffs right around the corner. And we're going to be talking about a whole lot of stuff today, so just watch out for that. It's going to be an awesome episode. But before we start the episode, we do have to plug our socials. Remember to follow our individual accounts at the Knockdown J, at TV on Basketball in the description below. You can find us over there. And in terms of the Hit Your Free Throws socials, remember to follow us on TikTok and Instagram for the best daily NBA content. And if you're listening on any of the podcast networks, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, subscribe, leave a review, all that good stuff. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe, hit the notification bell, like the video, make sure you share it with your friends, so you can really help grow this pod. We really do appreciate all your guys' support. And of course, you have to look at the YouTube shorts if you want to see some of the other daily content, which we usually just like upload in batches. So you're going to be able to see a lot more of them pretty soon. But nonetheless, they are going to be there. We got the intro out the way, Jay. Are you ready to talk some NBA basketball?
Yeah, man. We got a lot on the agenda, and specifically a lot of looking ahead. We're gonna look back at All-Star, but we've got a lot of stuff that we're projecting moving forward that I think is gonna be fun to talk about as well.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. We weren't going to do a full All-Star Weekend episode. So we just going to, but we're not going to ignore it. We're going to have a little recap here. It was, honestly, for the most part, it was a pretty good weekend. Friday, Saturday was probably the most fun part. Sunday was a bit eh. But Jay, what were your thoughts going on the entirety of All-Star Weekend?
I mean, personally, I think that there were certain highlights that I thought were huge. We are now like 2 for 2, at least in the last 2 years, in terms of the home team essentially getting the W in the skills challenge with Team Jazz. Thought it was really dope to watch Damian Lillard get the dub in the 3-point contest, taking down 2 Indiana Pacers in the process, and doing so in the alma mater fit with the Weber State jersey and shorts on. I thought that was very cool. And in a way, I thought it was huge in terms of, continuing to push this narrative for Damian Lillard's career, because he's a guy that for some reason isn't considered as one of the top shooters of all time. And I think putting his name in that hat as another one of those guys that's won the 3-point shootout is just another way to kind of help elevate that legacy for him. And then obviously the dunk contest. Look, bro, Mac McClung versus Trey Murphy was a very dope matchup, and McClung set the whole thing on fire. He's a dude that I hope they will have again. I hope they will allow him to defend his championship. I think that would be a really great way to kind of boost some notoriety to the dunk contest, is by bringing some of the winners back, or bringing just the past winner back as a repeat contest applicant, and see if you can knock him off. I mean, the dude basically came in and one shot every single attempt he did, and every single attempt was definitely unique in its own kind of way. Dude's got bunnies. He's had bunnies dating back to high school. People were not familiar with Mac McClung. He's kind of a dunk specialist in a way. Like, that's kind of been his calling card of your kind of, if you're used to the basketball hoop mixtape scene, that was kind of the calling card for Mac McClung, even dating back to when he won the Allen Iverson Classic dunk contest back when he was a McDonald's All-American. This dude does this, and he finally got to prove it on a much bigger stage. So I thought that was huge as well. And then the All-Star game itself, I thought the draft was fun, even though, it maybe went a little bit longer than we kind of wanted. Nikola Jokic being picked second to last feels crazy, but
insane.
Hey, that's a whole separate thing. And then Jason Tatum winning the Kobe Bryant MVP, I think, was also big considering his relationship with Kobe. But as most people said in the news, TV, It just wasn't a good game, bro. It just
It
wasn't a good
wasn't.
game. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it was honestly like the fact that the games on Friday, like the Celebrity game, the Rising Stars game, and then all of Saturday were better than the actual All Star game itself kind of says a lot. Because like the only thing I could really like as a memorable moment from that All Star game was that like Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum matchup where they went like head to head at the end of the third quarter. I mean, that was pretty fun.
Mm.
But besides that, it was just a lot of laziness, a lot of just random 3 point like chucking up. It wasn't a fun game, but the All Star draft, although pretty long, I don't know why they made it an hour, but I mean, 30 minutes would have been like more than enough. Um, I think that was a good idea, but besides that, yeah, the All Star game wasn't very good. But man, the one thing that's gonna be remembered for this All Star weekend is Mac McClung, as you said. That dunk contest performance by him was again maybe not like one of the best in history, but it just like brought the life back into it. And the biggest thing for me is, and I'm not sure if like you feel the same way when you watch a dunk contest, the way that he was able to hit those dunks all on the first try just made it feel
Yeah,
so
I agree.
like made it feel like a much bigger deal. And I mean, shout out to all the other guys. I mean, Trey Murphy basically had all of his dunks on the first try. Same thing with Jericho Sims as well. The only person who really kind of disappointed like crazy was Kenyon Martin Jr. But besides that, I mean, that was a really solid competition headlined by Mac McClung, who like all of those crazy dunks as always. The 3 point contest, you can't really mess that up. Dame did a really good performance, and after being it, and I think that's like his fourth time, he finally got the the 3 point contest champion, which is great. And then, I mean, we didn't really talk about Friday night, but Friday night was really fun. I mean, Alvarado stole the show on freaking the Rising Stars game,
Yeah,
which
right.
was which was really fun. And even a celebrity game, like out of all the years, I'm like, okay, some people won't watch a celebrity game, but I'm like a big celebrity like NBA celebrity game fan. I've been watching it for like every year. This has been one of the best ones. Like the fact like with the whole thing, and then the 4 point shot that the Miz almost hit at the end, like that was crazy. So honestly, as a whole, it was a pretty fun weekend. But Jay, like I'm just gonna throw this in. I know we didn't really talk about like that this like before the show, but what do they have to change about the All Star game, man? I mean, this is like even though they did change it to the Elam ending at the end, I mean, we gotta find a reason to help these guys care. I mean, because like even though like it was kind of close at the end, like let's be honest, we knew that like they weren't even like trying to come back like at the end of the game.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think it's tough because when it comes to the All-Star game in particularly, I think the Elam ending does work. I just think this was a bad year in terms of its implementation because it basically after the first 2 to 3 quarters, by the time the fourth quarter came, there was nothing to fight for Team LeBron. You know what I mean? As
Yeah.
opposed to the last 2 seasons when the All-Star game has come around with this new Elam ending implemented, by the fourth quarter, things were still relatively close, and so there was that competition that competitiveness that came out because there was still something to play for. But this year, I mean, Team Giannis got out to a crazy hot start, and basically from that point forward, it kind of lulled everything along, and that's kind of the give and take that comes with the Elam ending, right? Is if you do your dirty work early, it makes your job on the back end of the game that much easier. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, that leads to a very anticlimactic ending. But also in the games where they're much more competitive, a game-winning shot is the way that you steal the victory. So it has its gives and takes in the sense that for every boring game it can create, it can also create a Sports Center top 10 kind of moment in terms of getting game winners on a night-to-night basis. It's something that I think, like, unfortunately, just didn't work this year. But I think until the Elam ending builds a little bit of a habit or like a little bit of a rap sheet of having these kind of uninspiring finishes, as far as I'm concerned, we just gotta chalk this All-Star weekend up to being like meh and like looking ahead to next All-Star weekend with the hope that you know things will be a lot better. I mean, TV, we got to take one other thing into consideration too, and I think this is something that sometimes gets forgotten, is we got to look at the injury significance of this
Yeah.
game in particular. Kevin Durant didn't play. Zion Williamson didn't play. Steph Curry didn't play. LeBron James got injured in the game. Giannis sat after playing only 20 seconds. A handful of Nikola Jokic
Yeah.
barely played. Demontis Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox both like were put on the team, but really weren't implemented in any way. Granted, I mean it's an All-Star game.
Yeah.
You don't need to overthink it, but it was just kind of one of those things where specifically more so on the Western Conference side of things, the guys you would want to see in a setting like that didn't play. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They weren't
Hmm.
there. Guys like Kevin Durant, for example, might have brought a different level of oomph to that competition had he been available, but he wasn't. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so that kind of put things in flux a little bit. So the way I look at it is I don't think it was a great All-Star weekend. The dunk contest definitely saved / stole the weekend. So shout out to Mac McClung for that. But I think we just gotta chalk this weekend up as an L and move forward. And if there's a built up pattern of this once again, then maybe some new format should be implemented. Like I think the one that's become very popular is the idea of the 1v1 contest, right?
Yeah.
That being like the 1v1 tournament specifically has been one that's been brought up a ton. You know, those kind of things can be taken into consideration, but I don't think one bad completely like tank something like the Elam ending and stuff like that. But the dunk contest and stuff like that is suffering, so they still definitely need to work on some kind of way to keep that consistently building in a positive direction.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned the one-on-one contest because I do believe they should implement it soon in place of the skills challenge. Because let's be honest, let's be honest, no one cared about it.
You're right.
Like honestly, I don't know if you remember growing up when like the skills challenge used to be just the best guards in the league, just trying to get
Yeah.
the whole thing like very as quick as possible. I think like Derrick Rose had the record for like during like the original like skills
Mm-hmm.
challenge like format. But now there's like 3 rounds. There's 3 teams now. Like they've overcomplicated to the point where we're just watching like NBA players, mind you, NBA players do basic basketball drills
Yeah.
and it's not fun. Like at this point, like the skills challenge just needs to like we could get rid of it. So the idea of the one-on-one contest, if we can replace the skills challenge with the one-on-one contest, I am 100% down with that. I think that could maybe next year could be a testing ground for that, but because oh man, the skills challenge has fallen off a cliff. Either that or I don't know if you remember this competition too. Remember Shooting Stars? The Shooting
Yeah, man,
Stars.
that's definitely a old school throwback, but it had its elements that could really maybe spice things up a little bit. Unfortunately, something else that was brought up in a podcast I was listening to that I think would be an effective way, but definitely a questionable way to spice up All-Star Weekend is we might have to implement some more aggressive in sports betting, bro. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. We might have to add some much more aggressive betting, like, hey man, I'll put an extra grand on the table if you can get a bucket on me right now, or something like that. I don't know,
Oh
but
yeah.
I think there has to be some element of like that can incentivize players in game to feel as though they need to put on more of a show in a more competitive manner because yeah, bro. I'm not gonna lie. All-Star Weekend is becoming harder and harder to watch, and it's kind of becoming more about the All-Star break is becoming more about giving our NBA analysts a break than it is about like giving NBA fans a show. Like it's more about giving like the NBA and NBA analysts a break to kind of get a chance to like absorb everything that's happened in the first half of the season, of course, including the trade deadline. And the actual spectacle of All-Star Weekend, it's just not there, bro. I'm not gonna lie. Even the last couple of seasons, even with the fun Elam endings and stuff like that, there's just been kind of like there's always for every good thing that happens on All-Star Weekend, there's still got that one thing that you got a side eye with this questioning feeling, you know?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Before we move on to the next topic, the draft. Let's go a bit more to this. Do you like the way they did it, like doing the reserves first, then the starters? Apparently, it's to protect, their feelings or whatever. But let's be honest, they're all freaking grown men. They're freaking all stars. Like, why can't we just do it where we have both captains on either side of the court, and then just do it playground style? I mean, like, I just think they kind of overcomplicated it. Like you said, it shouldn't have gone over an hour. I mean, do you like the way to do it, or do you think they should keep it like a lot shorter?
I think the simplistic way about it is I think you mentioned this briefly when you like we bring up the playground aspect of it. I think you should first of all, I'm tired of conferences, but that's like a whole separate thing in terms of
Yeah.
the whole all. I'm tired of that as it is because if you're gonna have conferences, what's the point of being able to select which starters you want if they can come from opposing conferences. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do East-West, do East-West teams like it's always been. But if it's not gonna be that, if it's gonna simply be who the best players are that are elected via vote, then let that be universally not only how you select the all-stars, but also how the teams are drafted. It's like how things are as it is. Just make it all one and the same thing. But then I think the other thing was I thought the premise of drafting right before the game, I thought that was cool. It's a very casual version of pickup basketball. If the All-Star game is going to be a glorified version of pickup basketball, then give us the street ball element of I'm gonna be the leader on one side, somebody else is gonna be the leader on the other side. We're gonna pick for spots, and then we go out and we go hoop. I think it really should. I think that's perfectly fine. The only issue that I really have is the reserve. First of all, TV, we're not idiots. Just because you pick the reserves first, whoever the last reserve that's drafted is the last guy.
Is the last pick.
Simple mathematics. It's not complicated. That's number one. Number two is, again, it took way too long, and it was because they tried to make a spectacle out of it. It's not. It didn't do anything. It didn't bring anything to the table that made the event itself any much more special or any more fun as a fan by doing so. If anything, dragging it out actually kind of made things harder to retain because you kind of were like, can we get to the game already?
Yeah.
And it just like we were never getting there. And then for us to get to the game and the literal captains themselves barely play after putting on that hour-long spiel of drafting your teams, you don't even play in the game, really? It just, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
There's so much that has to be done in terms of that game in particular. I think the first thing has to be that you have to get rid of conferences. But I feel like that can be applied to the playoffs. A lot of people feel that way about the All-Star game. I think sometimes All NBA is kind of considered that way as well. But I mean, for the most part, All NBA is probably the fairest set of selections in all of the NBA in terms of how they go about their process. It's simply the best 15 guys in the league make All NBA. Seems like a very good method, right? In order to determine how to figure out who the best guys in the league are. I don't know why they don't implement that in other facets of the NBA landscape, like the All-Star game or like the playoffs, where the best 16 teams should just make it. But hey, man, I'm not in the front office and I don't help with the CBA, so
yeah, exactly.
It is what it is.
It is, and yeah, this honestly, an hour way too long. Keep it to 30 minutes. We can make it a lot shorter. It's just like we can't. And the whole thing about what is Shaq, Kenny, and all them like giving their thoughts like midway through. I'm like, nah, we don't need that. We really don't need that.
What's the analysis? What's the analysis for?
Exactly. Yeah, it was just completely unnecessary. But before we end with the NBA All-Star Weekend thoughts, I mean, it was an okay weekend. It wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. It was okay. But next year, the dunk contest this year, I mean, the names weren't really there. So, Jay, I'm going to throw it over to you for this one. Let's assume Mac McClung does come back next year, because let's be honest, we both want him back. We both want him to be
definitely
back
easily.
Yeah. Who would you have as the other three participants in the dunk contest? If you including Mac McClung, of course, he has to be there to defend the title. Who else would you have along like as your kind of your dream competition if you can have anyone in the league to participate in the dunk contest next year?
First off, I want my guy Zach LaVine. Clearly, I gotta have a Bull in there. Unfortunately, maybe he's not a Bull next season. That's a whole separate conversation. But nonetheless, I want Zach LaVine back in the contest. One of the better dunk contests of all time involved him being a part. Easily have to have him in the mix. John Morant, I think for all the right reasons, including if you watch the All-Star game, are indicators that he should definitely be a participant. I think also another guy who did put his name preliminarily in, which we have to watch how that happens, but Zion Williamson did preliminarily put his name in for the dunk contest next year. Mm-hmm. Now we got to take that with a grain of salt because LeBron James also did that the year before he made the decision to go to Miami and then ended up not doing the dunk contest. So for Zion Williamson, who wasn't healthy this year come the All-Star break, by the way, saying that he wants to be a part of next year's dunk contest is something we can't really go to bat for because there's no guarantee you'll actually choose to participate once the time actually comes. And B, let's be real. There might even be a possibility that Zion Williamson injured again by the time that the dunk contest comes. So then the other guy that I want instead is Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards is a premier dunker. And honestly, I would love to just watch him go up against the tallest guys in the league and poster them. I think that would literally just be his dunks. I think you could literally just have Anthony Edwards just go 1v1 on some of the best shot blockers in the league. Jared Allen, Nicholas Claxton, Brooke Lopez, Victor Wembanyama next season if you want to. Just put some of the tallest, best shot blockers in the NBA in front of Anthony Edwards and let's watch him completely murder them on national TV as his dunks. Nothing special. Just posters for the kids TV. Anthony Edwards, Zach LaVine, Ja Morant, and then of course Mac McClung. I think that would be an insane list. I know the names are still not entirely as insane, but from a dunking perspective, all of these guys are known for catching a body, and all of these guys are known for being able to put on a show by living above the rim.
Yeah. No, I do agree with those picks. And you know what? 2 out of the 3, I 100% agree with. Zach LaVine, I do have on my list. We just know what he's all about. We know that.
Come on, man.
I mean, like, he is just a given. We need to have him back in the dunk contest, even though he's won it twice. He probably is already done with the competition, but we would love to have him back. Next guy, Zion Williamson. I mean, we've been seeing this guy dunk since like high school. We want to see this, like, what type of stuff he has when there's a competition involved. We've seen his like high school dunk competitions as well. We want to see that type of stuff in the NBA. We want to see what he's all about. Of course, Mac McClung is going to be a part of it. But the other guy I want to be a part of it, I'm going to go a little bit out of left field because he was supposed to be in district competition. Shaedon Sharpe.
Sharpe. That was a miss. That was definitely a missed opportunity.
Yeah, like Shaedon Sharpe in this competition would be so. I mean, like, if you just watch him just dunk this year, this guy like floats in the air for like 2 or 3 seconds and it doesn't look real what he's doing. I just want to see like if he has like any creativity in terms of his dunks that could go with those insane bunnies. I mean, we thought we were gonna get something from Jericho Sims, and all he did was just dip his elbow twice in the rim, basically the same dunk, and it wasn't even that clean. But I just want to see something like him. I mean, yeah, Ja would be fun, but at this point, I'm tired of expecting Ja to be in it. Like, he's basically like guaranteed that he's not gonna be a part of it. And I think, like, and in terms of the Anthony Edwards pick, I think he would be fun, but I think he's more of an in-game dunker than like a legit dunk contest dunker. So maybe not him. But Shaedon Sharpe, I think he's actually the most like likely besides Mac McClung to be a part of this next year. So hopefully we could see Shaedon Sharpe be a part of this, because that would be really, really fun to see someone with like his level of bunnies in this competition. But if we're missing anyone, let us know down below if we are missing anyone that you guys want to see in next year's dunk contest. But that's all we're going to talk about the All-Star Weekend. Everything from here on out is either looking towards this season or even 5 years from now. What? Yes. Right now we're going to be doing a topic revolving around kind of predicting who we think are going to be the best players in the NBA in 5 years. I got this inspiration from a Kenny video that he posted a few days ago, where he like basically looked at a Sportster article where they predicted the best 20 players in 2023. I'm going to go through like at least the top 5 pretty quickly, because I think it's pretty crazy to see how this all turned out. Because I have the article right in front of me. They had Luka Doncic at number 5. I think that's a W for them, right? That's got to be a W to have him at number 5. That's pretty good. Donovan Mitchell at number 4. Sure, he's not maybe a top 5 player, but he is one of the best guards in the league. So I'm going to consider that a W. Jason Tatum at number 3. Another W right there. I think that he like him being at least like in this list is really good. I'm gonna go to number 1 because number 2 is just absolutely hilarious. But Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think they got that right. Best player in the league. He's at number 1. But Jay, they had Ben Simmons at number 2. What? They had
That's fall from grace, bro. Like you said, we were talking about it off camera, and like Kenny Beecham, when he did it on his video, he was kind of going through the list, and you could tell that he was just kind of shocked by certain guys. And when he was kind of breaking down some of the names on the list, he kind of contextualized it as like, okay, maybe this guy isn't top 20, but he's a guy that definitely is solid enough to have gotten some kind of consideration based on projecting. Ben Simmons is one of those guys that the hype was so insane around that once upon a time, honestly, you could have made an argument that 2 might have even been like lowballing him just because of the kind of hype that was around him. Remember, the tail on Ben Simmons was he is LeBron James without a jump shot. And if he gets a
Yeah.
jump shot, he's breaking the NBA. Everybody remembers that, right? This dude was the walking cheat code that if he got a jumper, the league was in shambles. Instead, we have concerns about Ben Simmons' long-term equity as a basketball player.
Yes.
It's kind of tough, bro. Definitely kind of tough.
Yeah. I mean, he's afraid to shoot the ball now, which is absolutely crazy. And they thought he was going to be a top 2 player in the league. And I remember at that time because he was like a 2-time All-Star already, 2-time All-NBA. So just, man, confidence is a massive in an athlete and especially in terms of superstar players. And he feels like he's completely lost that. So unfortunate for him, but it's good to look back at these type of things. But we're going to do it because there's 2 of us here. We're going to do it in a little bit of a different way. We're going to be kind of doing a little draft here. We're going to try and draft our best 5. We're going to go back and forth and try to like pick players who we think is going to be kind of the best 5 like in terms in the draft style in 2028. So let's be honest, by then, KD is probably not going to be in the league. Steph Curry is not going to be in the league. LeBron is definitely not going to be in the league in 2028. Well, we don't know that for sure, but all those guys, the guys that we know are superstars now, either they're going to be super old and not going to be like one of the best, or they're going to be completely retired. So we're going to do a little draft, and let's just see how these lineups turn out. Since I introduced this topic, Jay, I'm going to give you the first overall pick. Who would you pick to be in your lineup for the best players 5 years from now?
So my first draft pick is a guy who's not even in the NBA, but I feel like is a bet barring health, and I'm going with Victor Wembanyama off the cuff, bro. Give me Vic.
Oh my gosh, I had him on my list. I will say that I did have him on my list, but goodness gracious, Wembanyama, yeah, this like we haven't even seen him on the NBA court yet. But I mean, good. There's definitely going to be someone on my list, so that's definitely interesting. For my pick, I'm gonna go with a more for sure thing, just because we know he's like one of the best right now, and he's gonna be more in his prime by the time we get to 2028. Give me Luka Doncic. Give me Luka Doncic. I think by then he's gonna completely take over the league. I would be surprised by 2028 if he doesn't have an MVP yet. So give me Luka.
Yeah, that's definitely the next best pick. And honestly, if we had to talk about first overall picks, I think most would go the Luka Doncic route just out of the fact that he's already a proven commodity. But I'm telling you, man, Victor Wembanyama has everything in his bag, everything in the skill set. He doesn't have any injury concerns in ways that we've seen with big men of his size before. He's fundamentally built in ways that big men of his build typically don't come into the NBA with that kind of skill set. The ability to continue to build upon that sounds completely terrifying. But yeah, I think those 2 guys, literally in my list, they're both the top 2 consensus guys I have in my top 5 just as a whole. The next guy that I've got that I'm gonna go ahead and take, I mentioned him earlier. I'm going Anthony Edwards, bro. I genuinely believe
Yeah.
that if Anthony Edwards continues to develop as a player, and you can already see it with Minnesota when they decided to move on from D'Angelo Russell, they want to see Anthony Edwards in a role where he can be more on ball. And when he's been able to play a more on ball role, he has been a dangerous threat, and it's also helped develop his learning curve in a much better way than we've seen over the last year and a half prior. I know that the biggest concerns with Anthony Edwards is his work ethic and commitment, but he mentioned something at All-Star Weekend that really caught my attention, which was he was asked, like, what's one thing he would really like to see change in the NBA? And he said, I'm tired of the load management stuff. He takes pride in the idea of
Yeah.
playing the game. And you hate to pull out all the moralistic stuff when you talk about who you think is going to be the best, but I think you can see his mindset shifting to becoming a much more mature player. And a mature Anthony Edwards that's locked in with the kind of gifts that he has, he's going to be one hell of a player to watch for the long term. And we saw in the series between Minnesota and Memphis last season, when that dude is fully engaged on both sides of the ball, he can arguably be one of the best players on the floor in any given series.
Yeah, I really do like that pick. He was again on my list. And I don't know, that's just like that type of like mentality from a young player is a breath of fresh air. So I definitely like that pick there in Anthony Edwards. And now that he has, I think, complete reins in terms of ball handling on the Timberwolves team, it's only gonna unlock him more. My next pick though, I mean, there's gonna be a potential 3-time MVP in his early 30s still on this list. So I think I gotta go with him. I mean, Nikola Jokic. He like his sort of play, like it's gonna last like another decade. Like he's not like he doesn't rely on his athleticism. He's a good jump shooter, one of the best rebounders in the league, and he could just do everything on the offensive end at such a high level. I think that even when he's like in his early 30s, he's going to be like a top 5 player in basketball. So having him and Luka kind of be like kind of the leading men on my team, I like that. So give me Jokic. I mean, he's only in his mid-20s. He's not slowing down anytime soon. And he doesn't have many injury concerns, which is another good thing.
Yeah, I think that's huge, especially with the fact that Nikola Jokic, like you just mentioned, he's been a serious Iron Man for the Denver Nuggets for so long that you can definitely rely on him being able to progress at a safe pace. And he doesn't play a volatile style of basketball. So he's one of those teams. He's not going to be one of those players that you have serious concerns about, to be real.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My third pick is going to be who the guy who people said has been 18 forever. I'm going with Jason Tatum, bro. I mean,
Yeah.
the dude's not even going to be 30 by the time that we're talking about. And I mean, he's got everything in the package. I think when you talk about the next generation of scorers, like Jason Tatum might end up formulating himself into being like the next Kevin Durant, not necessarily in terms of his overall talent, but I think in terms of who we consider as some of the best one-on-one isolation individual shot creators. Jason Tatum is going to take that mantle as the next big wing with a bag that is going to be very hard for other people across the league to guard. And I think that overall, first of all, the two-way ability of Jason Tatum already makes him a
Oh
big time
yeah.
commodity by itself because we know how that is. If you're a two-way wing in this league, you already are considered as one of the top echelons in the NBA just because of the impact you can have on the game. But the fact that Jason Tatum every season continues to improve in terms of his decision making, he's getting better as a scorer. Obviously, he's a part of an organization in the Celtics who have empowered him to continue to grow his game in these ways while also being able to be much more aggressive. I think Jason Tatum is only going to get better with time. And I think that like I said, he's going to be one of those guys that ends up being inserted into the conversation as like that go-to scorer. Like when you look at the list of guys throughout history that are in that group of who do we consider as the best isolation scorers in the NBA, the get a bucket guys in the league. I think Jason Tatum is quickly building a real name for himself in that area. And I think by age 29, like I think he'll have really supplanted himself as a member of that group.
Yeah, and I think like the way that like especially like our generation, like the new people going into the NBA right now, like are looking at like kind of the current stars. A lot of them did look up to Kevin Durant as they're growing older. So I think the next like generation, when Jason Tatum like really asserts himself in the league, becomes like a 10-time All-Star or whatever, we're gonna see similar conversations of like people saying they were like looking at Jason Tatum's game and trying to model their game after that. And I think he's gonna be kind of
Yeah.
like like the next dominant wing for the next however, like 5 to 10 years, consistently 25 to 30 points per game, always on some of the best teams in the league. I definitely do like that pick with Jason Tatum as your third overall pick. My third overall pick, I am gonna again. Do I want to go? There's a couple of guys I do want to go with here, and I think I'm gonna. I mean, people think that this guy's just is gonna just purely rely on his athleticism, but I think his game is gonna translate well as the years still go on. I think he is a smart enough player to kind of like prolong his game for that long. I'm gonna go with Giannis. I'm gonna go with Giannis. He's 27 right now. By the time he's 32, some people are gonna be like, "Oh, he's lost his athleticism. He's lost his defensive capabilities." Giannis is still gonna be a dominant guy. I mean, however you want to put it, this guy's basically 7 foot tall with one of the longest wingspans in the NBA. He's just gonna dunk on your favorite player, and just nothing you're gonna do about it. And he's gonna have that same defensive ability. Sure, his team might be getting older, so by the time 2028 comes around, it might be a completely different Bucks team, or we will see Giannis in a completely different scenario. But I think that Giannis is still going to be like a number one, number at the very, very worst, number two option on a championship team come his early 30s. I think that his understanding of the game and stuff like that, I think is going to be good. Like can carry his career for a long time. He's not just a run and dunk guy. I think his game will continue to develop as the years go on, and he's still going to be very dominant in 2028.
TV, honestly, like the Giannis pick, I am a little worried about the fact that he has started to build up a little bit of an injury history, and that does concern
That
me a
too.
little bit, especially
Yeah.
when you look at the fact that he is a guy, like you mentioned, that relies on his athleticism as his main trait. He doesn't have a bag. He doesn't have any kind of real post work that makes you fear him from a fundamental standpoint. His build is kind of his greatest asset, but he's able to use it in such a way that it almost comes off as skillful because he's able to be that big, he's able to be that strong, he's able to have that decent of a handle at that size and produce at a high level while doing it, which is obviously unprecedented. But that injury history does kind of concern me. But again, like you mentioned, when you're that dominant and you've been this dominant for that long, you kind of have to believe in the product until it proves you otherwise, right? Until
Yeah.
you see, it's kind of the same thing with LeBron James now to an extent. Until you see the fall off the cliff, until you see the decline in athleticism in Antetokounmpo, you have to believe that he can keep doing this
Yeah.
and keep
Exactly.
dominating until somebody genuinely is able to put him in check. And so far throughout his career, at least since he's really transformed into this player, good luck. You know what I mean? So I
Exactly.
totally understand the pick, although I think there's a lot of different ways you can look at it. But if you're looking at it from the best perspective possible, I think Giannis, you could have made an argument. You probably could have taken him number one just because he's probably proved more than anybody we've taken so far,
Yeah, for
except for
sure.
maybe Nikola Jokic. But even
Yeah.
Giannis has a championship. So
Yeah.
that's a conversation in itself.
Hmm.
Um, I think for my fourth overall pick, I'm going to project again. I'm going to look ahead and I'm going to grab another guy that's not in the league, but I believe genuinely is going to be dangerous when we're talking about 5 years from now. I'm going with Scoot Henderson. I genuinely think,
You took my guy. I was gonna
bro,
take
if,
him
if
next.
if you listen to draft heads talk about this draft in particular, Scoot Henderson is a guy that falls into the same category with Victor Wembanyama. It's like if you had taken him in any of the past 2 to 3 drafts, as a prospect, he would arguably actually easily be number one in the eyes of most draft heads. When you look at last season, I remember Sam Vecini on his podcast, the Game Theory. He said blatantly, and he was a huge Cade Cunningham guy last year. He said blatantly that if Scoot Henderson were in last year's draft, he would have went number one overall. That's a huge thing to say when a number one overall pick came in the form of a 6'8" wing that most believed had like Luka Doncic-esque play style in him, or at least playability in him. It talking about Cade Cunningham. For a guy like Scoot Henderson at the guard position to be considered at such a high level, right? That cannot fly under the radar. TV, something else that I took into consideration with Scoot Henderson is we got to look up the built up history of these all-star guards and their development over the last couple of seasons. Tyrese Halliburton went to a solid situation, and basically his second real season, he's turned into an all-star and is one of the better guards in the NBA already. John Morant was in conversations in relation to Derrick Rose as a third season might be the MVP year, and you can make an argument that although he didn't win it, John Morant was legitimately a top 5 MVP caliber candidate for most of last year. I think a similar thing could be made even when you look at guys like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, right? He's in like his fourth or fifth season
Yeah.
now, and he's officially taken that leap into being considered as much more than kind of a guy that's an all-star fringe player. You have other dudes like De'Aaron Fox who are on the outside looking in who have just now really cracked into the conversation at the guard position. The funny part about it is when you look at Scoot Henderson fundamentally, he might be more prepared going into the NBA as a prospect than any of the guys I just named. He's more built than guys like Tyrese Halliburton and John Morant. He has the athleticism coming out the gate. He's a much safer and much better decision maker than some of those guys. Not exponentially, but he's definitely a big time decision maker that understands the flow of the game and when he needs to be the guy and when he needs to get other dudes involved. And on top of it, The dude went head to head with Victor Wembanyama, and it was definitely a fair matchup back to back between the two, despite the fact that Victor Wembanyama is the guy that most people have determined is definitely the number one overall pick, regardless of what team ends up getting that choice. So I think you throw on top of that his competitive spirit, that obviously is his own separate thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that Scoot Henderson is built different. And I think if you look at the progressive guard last couple of seasons, year 4, year 5, I think year 3 is when you start to see it start to uptick. And year 4, year 5 is when these guys end up really, really sitting at the top of the mountaintop as some of the better guys in the league if they truly develop in the right situations. And we've got a pretty solid track record of that now. So I'm going with Scoot. I'm trusting Scoot, man.
Yeah. No, that was tough because that was actually gonna be my next pick, and you stole the words out of my mouth. I just think like the way he is built, and just the idea of the prospect of like a 6'5" guard who already like has like that kind of that passing IQ, his ability to get to the rim, he's uber athletic as well. I think that he is kind of the prototypical guard that you want going forward. And I think that he not only does he have the athletic aspects to his game, he already like feels like such a smart player at such a young age, and that's only going to develop when he's around NBA personnel, veterans in the league. It's only going to get better once he gets in. And we've seen massive jumps, like you mentioned, with a John Moran. SGA really took that next step after Chris Paul left, and look and what that was, his third season. Like you could see like a lot of that stuff happening. So Scoot Henderson, definitely a valid pick for this draft. Just sucks because I wanted to get him. So that was definitely a good pick. Now for my next pick. Actually, it does come down to two of the guys that you just mentioned for me. It's either going to be John Morant or SGA. And I think for longevity purposes, I'm going to go with SGA. I think that his like John Morant, I mean, we did like compare him to Derrick Rose of the past, and I think in some ways that might hurt his game going forward, playing so reckless, playing like with like just like a tunnel vision towards the rim. Yes, it is great right now, but it's just like again worry about his future outlook in terms of like injuries and stuff like that. As with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, when you watch him play, he plays at his own pace. He's improved his 3-point jump shot. He's improved his passing. He's a good rebounder, and he's like one of those players where he's so crafty. He could get to the free throw line like 10 plus times a game. He's going to be someone who eventually, once he gets like the good team around him, like once you see more development in Josh Giddey, Chad Holmgren when he comes back from injury, you're gonna really see the true powers of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And we've seen it like in the past with Devin Booker, where we've seen him that we knew that he was a great player, but he just was in a bad situation before the Phoenix Suns turned into great title contenders. Once we start seeing the Thunder team develop around Shai, we're gonna have that same realization with Shai with SGA. So I think right now, yes, I'm a big John Morant fan. As if you've been following at least like my page for the last 2 years, I'm always gonna be a John Morant defender. I'm gonna praise the guy a lot. But I think that going forward, I'm gonna take my guy SGA, and like in terms of like who I think is gonna be a lot more effective by 2028. So I'm gonna go SGA.
I think SGA is a really good pick when you talk about translatability. I think one of the biggest things I harp on about SGA every single year is just not just that he's gotten better TV, but like you gotta really track SGA's career so far, bro.
Yeah.
Like SGA has legitimately played within every NBA role there is at the guard position. He started out as a guy with the LA Clippers that was playing more of a bench role as a tertiary, maybe even the fourth option from a guard perspective, as a part of a ready-made LA Clippers team that was looking to make postseason runs with a lot of veterans and a group that was just more hard-nosed and ready to, like I said, make a run at the postseason. Then you get a part of the Oklahoma City Thunder, and it's not really your team yet. You're playing next to Chris Paul. You're playing in a 3-guard lineup next to Chris and Dennis Schroeder. You're maybe the second best option, but you got all these guys around you. That was the Lou Dort year where he had like an insane 3-point shooting season. Obviously, Chris Paul was still at the peak of his powers, at least a lot better than he's been in recent memory. Dennis Schroeder, he had a career year that year. Danilo Gallinari had a great year that season, right? There were these things that were working in favor of the OKC Thunder, and they were a much scrappier team than most people thought at the beginning of that season after that trade. Then the year after, you're given the keys for the first time and you're adapting to the idea of being the lead guy now. So now you're getting an understanding of what it is not to just be the leader of your team, but to now be a face of a franchise for the first time ever. And now this season, he's under the microscope of now, not only are you the face of the franchise, but now, Shay, we're working towards trying to build around your skill set. We got another ball handler in Josh Giddey in the draft. We grab another big time wing player in Jalen Williams. You've got these guys who are all intelligent, 6'8", 6'7", 6'8" wings that can fly around and ball handle and play really well. Now you're building a team to fundamentally start making a real organizational push towards some real stability as opposed to all the tanking that OKC's kind of looked at over the last 2 or 3 years, right? So Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is just a very well-seasoned player for a guy who's only been in the league for like 4 to 5 years, bro.
Yeah,
And that's something
100%.
that I think can translate into like a crazy, that's going to be a really great vet for any team.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a guy who can definitely be the best second or even third best player on a championship team because he knows how to wear each hat and produce at the highest level possible, regardless of which role he's put into. The versatility of that alone, even if he might not be the best player on his team 5 years from now, depending on how the chips fall, he's going to be so good in his role that he's going to have to be still considered as a top player at his position, kind of in a similar way like Chris Middleton kind of is.
Yeah.
I think SGA is better than Chris Middleton, but I think the interesting thing about Chris Middleton is for a dude who does so many things well, he's not considered as like a crazy superstar, but he's always in all-star conversations because of just how well-rounded he is as a player. I think SGA is building out a resume for himself to do something similar to that. I hate to go on a super long SGA rant, but the same way
No,
you feel about Ja Morant,
yeah.
I've been a stand for SGA since Kentucky and maybe even a little bit before then. So seeing his progression, I think it's great that you highlight that like Ja Morant might be the flashy pick, but he could with the play style he has. We've seen it with my favorite player, Derrick Rose. With the play style he has, there is some danger to that. There's some serious danger to that, and that can create a tough career moving forward. And we are talking about 5 years ahead. So I really appreciate you even throwing that out there because I think that's a really big point to keep in mind. But I guess I got the fifth and final pick in terms of my team.
Yeah.
So, TV, I've kept a certain role that I've been rocking with in terms of how I've been going about drafting. It's about looking forward. I'm going to do it again, and not necessarily in the form of a guy that's in the NBA draft, but a guy who we still don't have a ton of tape on yet in terms of what he's going to look like long term. I'm going Paolo Banchero, dude. I think that Paolo Banchero, the versatility of a guy that can be 6'10" with his kind of built frame. He's already averaging nearly 20 points per game, 3.6 assists, 6.6 rebounds. The biggest thing that people talk about with him is his lack of efficiency. I mean, the dude is shooting, I think it's pretty abysmal from three right now. Yeah, 28% from three, 41% from the field. So, like, the shooting splits are not great. But I think two things that are super important when you look at Paolo Banchero is, as a rookie, he's getting the whistle. Dude's averaging nearly 8 free throw attempts a game. Not too many rookies are getting to the line that consistently on a night-to-night basis. The second thing is the free throw percentage. He's shooting 75% on that volume of free throw attempts. I think the solid part about looking at the free throw percentage, it's indicative that I don't think he's a bad three-point shooter. I just think he's not getting good three-point shots right now. And TV, we talked about this off camera. They don't have great guard play right now.
Yeah.
Like Markelle Fultz is their best guard right now, and he's kind of coming back into his own after years of kind of trying to figure himself out as a player.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But when you look at guys like Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony, they're not really true point guards in any way. They don't really set him up, and they don't really shoot the three ball that well either, right? So there's not a ton of spacing on this Orlando Magic team. I think as he continues to develop, he already has a silky smooth jumper from mid-range. He's a guy who can operate in the post. He can play out in transition. He's got all the skills to be a really big-time player, a big-time scorer. I just think that as Orlando continues to build, his game is going to continue to be unlocked based on the skill sets around him. I think Orlando has already identified certain positions of need. They just got to go out and address them now and attack them. And I think that's why guys like Fred VanVleet was brought up at the trade deadline for the Magic and things like that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Is because they understand that guard play can unlock Franz, can unlock Paolo, can unlock Jonathan Isaac. It can open up so much by having that guy at the top to make all the decisions.
Yeah, I do like that pick. And again, I mean, it's I do like have like my doubts on Banchero, but I definitely see the vision there with you, and I do believe if he does put it together, especially if like like if he ups that 3-point percentage, the sky's the limit for the guy. He's uber athletic. He's able to the fact that he's already getting to call at such a young age, like he like understands like what it takes to like, get to the free throw line, how to get to the rim, fearless. I like the mentality of that Paolo Banchero has, and I think that is a very valid pick to kind of round out your lineup. But for my final pick, I'm not going to go John, unfortunately, because I just don't. Again, I just as much as I love him, I do have my doubts of his game going forward. Again, it comes down to two players, and it's two guys that can get you a bucket on any possession. But I'm going to go with the more efficient guy and the guy who's actually been to the NBA Finals. Give me Devin Booker. Give me Devin Booker. I believe that, and you've seen it this year especially. Like he missed like more than a month due to injury. And what happened to the Phoenix Suns? They were like the top 3 seed in the West, and they basically fell out to almost out of the play-in picture.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing Devin Booker back into the lineup, sure, he might not be the best player on his team right now, especially having Kevin Durant. But we've seen his impact on the game the last few years. Like the same spiel I gave about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, where no one was noticing him because he was on a bad team. Put him in a good situation like he is right now, you're going to see his game completely flourish. And that's what's happening with Devin Booker. He's very efficient from both, from all 3 levels in terms of field goal percentage, 3-point, and free throws. He knows how to get to the rim. He is a underrated passer, in my opinion, and he's just someone where you feel comfortable at the end of the game that he's going to be able to make the right decision, and he's going to be able to get a good shot. We're gonna have like a someone who's gonna be able to just get you a bucket at the end of any game. And yeah, this Suns team is gonna get older, but they still might have DeAndre Ayton around. Whoever is gonna come through the ranks as well. But I think that Devin Booker, in terms of just bucket getter, someone that you want to get the ball, who you want to give the ball to at the end of the game, he's going to be on the Luka Doncic level. He's going to be on the Jason Tatum level, even 5 years from now, in my opinion. So having someone like that and someone who has the playoff experience now that he didn't have like 3 years ago, I think he's going to be like still one of the top players come 2028. So give me him as my last pick. So we made all our draft picks. I mean, what was your thought on Devin Booker? Do you think that it was like do you think that was like a solid pickup there?
I think that's solid. I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing that you do have to focus on is who are guys that you think game is going to translate long term. One of the biggest things that you did address is, I mean, the dude's a shooter. The dude is a big time shooter, and although the 3-point percentages are not insane, he is a guy who can get you a timely bucket at any given time. And we know that guys who are all around scorers are able to build real longevity in the league. We've seen it time and time again. Even if they might not be considered the best guy in the league, we've seen that dudes who can fill up the box score in short spurts or even over the course of an entire game are able to carve out really long careers for themselves. And then if you can do it at a very special level, the way Devin Booker can, that inserts you into a completely different conversation, which does mean that Devin Booker has a really good shot. And he was one of those dudes that was on my list as well.
Yeah, and I think that again, his like that shot making ability, that poise at the end of the game, that's not going to leave him even 5 years from now. If anything, that's going to get even better. But Jay, before we move on to the next topic, let's recap our teams. Who do you got on your team? For who do you think is going to be like one of the some of the best players come 2028?
Yeah, so my draft for the best players 5 years from now in 2028 is consisting of Victor Wembanyama, Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, Scoot Henderson, and Paulo Banchero.
Very, very nice lineup over there. For my team, we got Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Devin Booker, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Nikola Jokic. I have a bit more of an NBA flavor and the guys who are a bit more proven, but it's good. It's going to be interesting to see whether Jay's picks do hold up come 2028. Let us know down below what you guys of each of these teams, which team is better. Also, if we missed anyone, if you think that someone got absolutely snubbed from this list, let us know down below. Because I'm telling you right now, there's some other players here, potentially LaMelo Ball. None of us chose Ja or Zion. Very
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Bam Adebayo, Jaren Jackson Jr., Donovan Mitchell. So many guys that we missed out on. But if there's anyone that you think got absolutely snubbed, let us know down below. Let's pull it back a little bit. We're looking way too much in the future. We still have a whole season to go on today, this season going on, and we're gonna be talking about that in the form of who are the true championship contenders. Because now everything is settled, the trade deadline has passed. We are past the All-Star weekend. We kind of have an idea, especially with a lot of the buyout market movements. We kind of have an idea of what each team is gonna look like. Maybe not how they're gonna play on the floor, but what they look like in terms of roster construction. So we're going to talk about who we consider to be the legit contenders for the remainder of the season. It can be as many as two. It could be as little as two. It could be as many as 5 or 6. It's going to be interesting to talk about. We're going to definitely have some common teams here. But Jay, how many teams firstly do you have in that championship? I'm going to call it a championship bubble. And do you think that, we talked about in the past, maybe 10, 12 teams have a narrative that can get them far into the playoffs. But who do you have as those true contenders?
In terms of true contenders, TV, oh man, I gotta be honest. I have 6.
6.
And I'm
Interesting.
borderline on 7 right now, but we can maybe talk
Okay.
about it like towards the end, or if the team that I'm thinking I have on the outside looking in is in your group, maybe you can even maybe
Yeah.
motivate me to put them in this
Yeah.
bubble. But
Okay.
I'm at 6 with a borderline 7th right now, which I guess should be very indicative of how crazy this freaking season has been in terms of the
Yeah.
teams that are really in the mix.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's crazy because you have 6. I narrowed it down to 4. I think that there are
Really?
four true contenders. You can make an argument for other guys,
Okay.
and I'm excited to see like who you have there because you might be able to convince me otherwise. But I'm gonna go through my
Okay.
list. I'm gonna go through my list. Tell me if you agree or disagree, and then we can just go from there. I have the
Okay.
Celtics. I have the Celtics. Yeah, do you have them in your bubble?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The Milwaukee Bucks,
Same.
the Denver Nuggets,
Same.
and the Philadelphia 76ers.
I agree with you, but now your list is much more interesting to me. Okay, okay.
Okay, so
But I
those are
agree with you. They're also in my group as well.
okay. But who are because you said you had two other teams and one borderline team. Who
Yeah.
are those? What are those teams?
So the two other teams that I have are the Phoenix Suns, the new look Phoenix Suns, mind you,
Yeah.
the Dallas Mavericks, and the team on
Oh,
the outside is the LA Clippers.
I didn't want to talk about the
I
Clippers,
know,
man.
but TV, that's the thing. We gotta have the conversation because now it's been officially penciled in that they're getting Russell Westbrook. Not that that's supposed to be a huge deal, but
Yeah.
I think that they're making active moves in order to make their team much better. They've got 2 playoff performers in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and they've got one of the best adjusting coaches in the postseason in Ty Lue, bro. So, and I brought this up on my podcast when I recorded earlier this morning, but the Clippers are just in an interesting set of circumstances because continuity is what obviously always has hurt this team over the last 2 to 3 seasons, right? Kawhi barely plays, Paul George is barely in the lineup. It seems like the roster is always in flux in terms of whose role is what. But one thing that can easily solve that problem is just a guy that plays with much more pace and energy. Sounds like Russell Westbrook in a heartbeat, bro. One of the things that I
Yeah.
realized, one of the things I realized about the LA Clippers was they're like the 5th slowest team in the entire NBA this year. Guess where the LA Lakers were at in terms of pace of play with Russell Westbrook on the roster? Second.
Yeah.
Second in the NBA in pace of play. Now, the crazy part about that is the Lakers don't have the athletes that the Clippers have. The
Yeah.
Clippers have a bunch of dudes who can get out and run, can shoot the 3 ball as guys who can be hangers and wait out and shoot out to the 3 point line and go out to the corners. They got athletes like Terrence Mann. Like I mentioned beforehand, They have Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Nicholas Batum is a reliable 3-point shooter. They've got another guy in Bones Highland who they picked up during the trade deadline as another dude who thrives in transition. They've got all of these athletic wings. Ty Lue loves to play small ball with a bunch of 6'5" to 6'8" guys who can just fly around and play ball handler basketball where everybody can dribble, pass, and shoot and stuff like that, right? And then you add a guy in Russell Westbrook who can grab the ball off for a rebound. He's one of the best rebounding guards in the league and push the ball in transition. And unlike the Lakers, the Clippers actually have the personnel to not just play that style of basketball, but thrive in it. The Lakers were second in pace, and they didn't even have the athletes to do that. So imagine what Russell Westbrook can do with the 3-point shooting and the athletes that the Clippers have. It makes them at least puts them in the conversation, bro. Norman Powell's another knockdown shooter for them as well. I don't want to forget anybody, but their team is deep.
Yeah, I just think that with the Los Angeles Clippers, it's the same problem that they've had the last few years.
You're right.
And there's two. One, the injuries. We just don't know who's going to be available come playoff time. And you've mentioned this in the past, and I like this term that you use a lot, which is like surplus of like assets. And I think that, yes, it's good to have like a lot of these guys. But man, when it comes to the playoffs, you have to shorten your rotation. Some guys are not going to get minutes. I love Ty Lue, and he is great at making adjustments. But when you have so many guys, you're going to, like, I get a feeling he's just going to be like, okay, let's try this. There's not going to be a concrete rotation there with the LA Clippers. And that's and although that's a good problem to have, it's still a problem nonetheless. And I think that with that team, now even adding Russell Westbrook, I mean, what's that going to mean for Terrence Mann's minutes? Bones Highland, even before the All-Star break, was talking about he doesn't know how the minutes are going to work here. Now adding Russell Westbrook, Bones, you're going to have even less minutes to have, my guy.
True.
So as much as, like, again, on paper, it looks great. And the Russell Westbrook, I think people are hating on it too much. I think it's something that the Clippers might need, a change of pace type player. It's just there's just too many like moving parts to deal with, and he has to figure this out in 26 games. That's what kind of worries me, that this all is like all these changes are being made mid-season. That this didn't happen in the offseason, and that's what kind of worries me about the Clippers team. In terms of the other two teams that you mentioned, and the Phoenix Suns and the Dallas Mavericks, look, the star talent is there. I truly want to believe in that, but at the same time, when it comes to depth, when it comes to defensive capabilities on both these teams, I'm not convinced. I am not convinced with either of these teams. Again, these are like mid-season additions. These are not something where you have a whole like season to like figure this out. No. They have around 25 games to figure this all out. And that's what kind of worries me. Sure, the Phoenix Suns have a top 5 player in Kevin Durant. But is that going to look like on the basketball court? I'm not sure. Is everyone going to be healthy by the time the playoffs come around? I'm not sure. I just have way too many questions on those teams. And for the 4 teams that we have, that we do agree on, and the Celtics, Bucks, Nuggets, 76ers, I just feel more confident as their team as a whole. A lot of these guys have been together for a long time. And I just think that their continuity, their stability within their organization at the moment makes them the true contenders, where I just have way too many question marks, especially with the Clippers, but a bit less so with the Dallas Mavericks and the Phoenix Suns.
So I guess before I kind of go into anything in regards to those teams, I guess I'll start with the Dallas Mavericks, just because you didn't incite a whole bunch about them. Like, what is your fear with Dallas just more so the amount of time they have to make this work before the postseason, or is there something else that really is kind of nagging at you?
Oh, it's just the roster around Kyrie and Luka Doncic. I'm just not confident in the roster around them, especially the defense. The bad market thing is still going on, but they still have not a great like defensive rotation. We don't know the status of Maxi Kleber even to this point. He's still out with that hamstring injury. And their best perimeter defender besides Maxi Kleber is Josh Green. So it's a lot of inexperience there. And yes, you're going to get basically 60 points from Kyrie and Luka anyways. And if they can keep it close at the end of the games, they do have chances to go deep into the playoffs. But when it comes with the supporting cast around them, there's just way too many question marks, defensive liabilities. I'm just not a fan of the roster around them. Now things can change when it comes to the buyout market. Let's see if they're able to, add some guys, even looking at the rest of the buyout. I mean, maybe someone like a Will Barr can help them out, but that's even like is that really gonna be that much of a difference maker? But I just like not a fan of the rest of the guys around them. Yes, Luka Doncic is that guy. Yes, he could take them far enough, especially now with a second star. But I have a feeling that the Dallas Mavericks is just not gonna be, especially like a this year type team. I would, if they were able to re-sign Kyrie, I am more comfortable with what they're able to do next season.
See, and TV, I actually want. I think it's great that you ended there because that's actually where I want to pick up. I think that's the reason why they're a contender, bro. I think
Okay.
that point you just made right there is why I think that the Dallas Mavericks are a contender because when you look at the framework of the way this season has to go, there is no guarantee for next year, TV.
Yeah.
We have to remember Kyrie Irving is a free agent this
Yes.
summer. Like we cannot completely dismiss that.
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving has been notably distrustful not only to the people around him, but I think also he's been a guy that you cannot necessarily trust in terms of what you believe is reliable information, right? Can you have me? I will stay if you'll have me. We brought this up on the
Yeah.
podcast before when it comes to his stint with the Boston Celtics. I'm sticking with 7 when he was talking about staying with the Brooklyn Nets. Two
Yeah.
for two on situations where he was supposed to stick it out and things didn't last as long as we might have hoped, considering we wanted to take his word. Remember, the Lakers still positioned themselves after the trade with the Utah Jazz to open up significant cap space this offseason. He was rumored to the Lakers heavily during the trade deadline.
Yeah.
The Phoenix Suns inquired about Kyrie Irving so much they were willing to put Chris Paul in a package to trade for Kyrie Irving, and they still have the flexibility this offseason to potentially move off of DeAndre Ayton in order to create more cap space for themselves. And with Matt Ishbia, their new owner, being aggressive enough to go after Kevin Durant, it wouldn't be too insane that Kyrie Irving schemed up this elaborate plan the same way he schemed up them getting to the Brooklyn Nets, scheming
Yeah.
up this elaborate plan where him and Kevin Durant both end up right back together in a better situation, a part of the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah.
These are the crazy rumors to think about,
Yeah.
but they are things that unfortunately make it where you cannot necessarily trust that there is a next year in terms of this duo.
Yeah.
So that makes me feel like this is a team that has to play with a certain level of desperation. And we know the teams that play with the least to lose, or with the most to lose, excuse me, those are the teams you have to fear the most. Because those are the teams with the highest expectations. Those are the teams that understand their back is against the wall and they understand there's 2 routes they can go. Significantly underachieve and be under the gun all off season for it, or they got to play up to the bill. We saw that with the Phoenix Suns, right? One year
Yeah.
they're in the NBA Finals, and the next season they're getting the Luka special in the second round. And it changes your entire narrative around that team because for most of the year, people did not believe in Phoenix
Yeah.
because of what happened. And Dallas is in a similar light. Dallas made it to the finals. They got an upgrade at the point guard position. Despite losing Jalen Brunson, they get Spencer Dinwiddie. Now later on in the season, they're up to a Kyrie Irving. All right, bro, you got the most talented guard Luka Doncic has ever played next to since being drafted. If you made the conference finals with Jalen Brunson as your point guard, what do you got to do with Kyrie Irving? Those are the questions that are going to be asked when it comes to this Dallas team. And I think
Yes.
that makes them a team you got to watch out for. And then I'll transition this back to you because, of course, I know I've been going on for a second. So I want to
Yeah.
get your thoughts back with Phoenix. I get the depth issue. But TV, let me ask you a question that I feel
Yeah.
like is so important when looking at the Phoenix Suns. This is not the Eastern Conference, TV.
Yeah.
In the Eastern Conference, I think you can name, I'm going to say 4 teams that had a guy you felt confident, at least one guy you felt confident putting on Kevin Durant in a playoff setting
Yeah.
and being able to contend with them. The
Mhm.
Boston Celtics, who have Jason Tatum
Tatum.
and Jaylen Brown. The Milwaukee Bucks, who have Giannis, Chris Middleton, and Drew Holiday as legitimate
Yeah.
options defensively. The Philadelphia 76ers, who do have, of course, PJ Tucker, who has notably guarded Kevin Durant relatively well.
Yeah.
And They have a little bit of perimeter defense with some of the guys that they have. Granted,
Yeah.
D'Anthony Melton and guys like that are much shorter, but they're physical on the
Yeah.
defensive end. And then I think you could also make an argument that the Miami Heat
Miami Heat.
have
Yeah.
a ton of guys that at least play with the physicality to contend with a Kevin Durant at the wing position, right? Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, dudes like that who can hop out on the wing.
Yeah.
In the Western Conference,
Yeah.
how many teams do you think have a guy, at least one guy, that can genuinely guard Kevin Durant?
I think it's just the Clippers.
It's just the Clippers. And I had the
the...
exact same. I came to the exact same conclusion. Is that
Yeah.
when you look down the entire Western Conference, I even did a breakdown going all the way down to the Lakers at 13. I don't see a single team in the Western Conference playoff picture that has a guy outside of the Clippers that you can say I can put on Kevin Durant for 30 plus minutes a game confidently and feel as though you're not going to stop Kevin Durant. But giving Kevin Durant a hard time is all you need in a series in order to win 4 games. Because all he has to do is be mid to I in 4 games for you to have a legitimate chance to beat the Phoenix Suns. That's it.
Yeah.
But if you don't have anybody that can legit guard Kevin Durant to that caliber, that's just the number one option. That's not Devin Booker. That's not CP. That's not DeAndre Ayton. Dare I say, they even have TJ Warren on the roster who can be a microwave scorer in short spurts.
I'm not doubting the talent of the Phoenix Suns, though. It's especially this year in particular. Their injury issues scare the heck out of me.
I do feel you on that, though.
Their injury issues, and that's the reason I even highlighted this on my notes. I don't want to say Phoenix because of the current injury issues. I mean, let's not forget Devin Booker missed over a month due to injury. Let's not forget Kevin Durant is in the midst of another injury itself, a major injury that sidelined him for a serious amount of time when he was with the Brooklyn Nets the other year. So again, I'm not going to say that they don't have a good shot, because when you have Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, I don't care what the rest of your roster looks like. You have a chance at the finals. It's just the current situation of the Phoenix Suns, the state of their injuries, and just trying to implement all this in the last 26 games and hoping that everything is going to be all right come to playoff time. Give them a full season, maybe. That's why I'm a lot more confident in them this year, especially now that they have contract control with Kevin Durant. But this season, I have my doubts. That's why I don't have him in my championship bubble, unfortunately. But before we move on, I mean, in terms of these other teams, do you feel confident in these guys, especially with the good chunk of East teams? Do you feel confident in their ability to potentially make a championship run?
I mean, genuinely, TV, I think if we use the logic that you just applied with the Phoenix Suns, the team that I'm most worried about in terms of the 4 teams me and you agreed on has to be the Philadelphia 76ers. It has to be. Because at the end of the day, Joel Embiid cannot go through a postseason without getting injured. He just can't.
Yeah.
James Harden has had his flameouts in the postseason on its own, and his back is against the wall because there's also rumors running around that he might end up going to Houston, going back in the foreseeable future. Not sure how real that is, but that does create somewhat of a window for Philadelphia in terms of needing to get it done sooner rather than later. I think they've got the defensive personnel. They've got plenty of guys on their roster that can definitely produce in a postseason setting. But again, Joel Embiid seems to always get injured at inopportune times. It literally cost them a series against the Atlanta Hawks a couple years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is a guy who unfortunately ends up falling out at times when you need him the most. And that's something he has a well-documented history with. Granted, it's not his fault. You can't control the injury circumstances. But it's kind of similar to Chris Paul. If it's inevitable, you have to consider it much heavier in terms of the narrative around their team. So Joel Embiid is a guy who you have to be fearful of in terms of how long he can last in a postseason setting. And I think that's good that he made the mature decision to not participate in the All-Star game, to focus on rehabbing his injury, because they're gonna need it period, point blank. They're gonna need him TV if they want to make a real run. And James Harden, man, people don't even care. James Harden literally missed the All-Star game because people don't even care what James Harden does in the regular season anymore. That's how much pressure he
Yeah.
has as a postseason performer. He wasn't even elected as an All-Star. Your guy Pascal Siakam got in over him as an electee for the reserves,
Yeah.
despite the fact that some maybe argued that he was having a better season than Pascal. And I think that's still, well, granted, that was positions and stupid stuff that has to do with the All-Star game. But
Yeah.
also, I think we do again have to consider the fact that people devalue what James does in the regular season so much because it's a been there, done that with them. But the postseason is always the big tell as to what the real James Harden looks like.
Yeah.
So I think of the four teams the four teams we both agree on, Philly might be the team that we might have to really sweat on because they are one Joel injury away from getting packed up.
Yeah, I think like even like that there were like originally I had three teams on this, and the 76ers were kind of a late addition because of that whole
Mhm.
Joel Embiid factor, just because we've seen like each and every season,
Every
it's just
season.
bound to happen, which is unfortunate. But my more confidence in this year compared to previous years is that they've improved their bench, at least the pieces around them, if they do stay healthy. I think that those two, as like healthy, is a dangerous duo, and again, that is never a guarantee with these two. But at least like there's gonna be a bit less pressure with the other guys that they added around him, like we've mentioned earlier, the Anthony Meltons. You have Tyrese Maxey coming off the bench now to kind of like alleviate like get some more bench help. They added PJ Tucker to help on the defensive end. I think that they've like improved like the periphery a bit better, which makes them a lot more confident about that team. But the injury issues are always going to be there with the Philadelphia 76ers. And the fact that Doc Rivers is their coach. And the fact that Doc Rivers is their coach. But in terms of the other teams, the Nuggets, we haven't really seen them get past, the third round. And plus, their defense is not top 10 in the league. It's something a bit different. But we know there's there's something that's waiting to explode there into Jamal Murray. And we've seen what he's able to do come playoff time. So let's see what version of Jamal Murray they get there. In terms of the Bucks, we know about their championship DNA. We know about Giannis Antetokounmpo. My only concern with them is which version of Chris Middleton they're getting, because so far this season he's been kind of underwhelming, but obviously he's just coming off surgery, so that's completely normal. But what version we're gonna get out of Chris Middleton out of the Bucks is definitely a question mark. And plus their 3-point shooting has take a significant dip compared to previous years. And then the Boston Celtics. I mean, they're for me the best all-around team in the league. They got two 27-point per game scorers. But my issue with them is just they live and die by the three. I saw the stat, but in wins they average like 41% from three. In losses they're almost 30%, like under 30% from three. So that's just something that they kind of live or die on, which kind of worries me about. But I have a lot more confidence in those teams' continuity, just everything in general. In terms of like their whole personnel, that's why I have them firmly in my championship bubble. If you have any thoughts on those other three teams that you chose.
I think you make really great points. TV, I do want to express something real quick that I feel
Yeah.
like is really important when we talk about these three teams. And I'm going to focus
Yeah.
specifically on the Denver action.
Mm-hmm.
TV, me and you are of the camp that Nikola Jokic is deserving of being a three-time MVP. I
Yes.
think we both have been kind of lockstep on this for majority of the season, whether we talked on camera or offline about this.
Yeah.
But I think that and this is a narrative that is starting to grow, so maybe I'm joining the bandwagon, but I do want to openly express my feelings on this. We are going to have to start asking real questions about Nikola Jokic if the Denver Nuggets do not make a legitimate run this postseason. Because if you
Yeah.
look at the landscape of the NBA, most, if not all, MVP caliber teams, I mean, MVP caliber players, if you look across the landscape of the NBA, most MVP caliber players are given the pressure of needing to produce just as much in the postseason as they do in the regular season. We've seen it crumble people. For example, James Harden has won an MVP, and his overall postseason resume is kind of the biggest thing knocking his overall legacy right now. We've also seen other guys in the past, obviously the LeBron Jameses, the Kevin Durant's, the Steph Curry's, anybody who has been considered as an MVP caliber player expected to raise their level in the postseason. In the past 2 years, we have been able to give the Denver Nuggets the benefit of the doubt by saying they did not have their guys around Nikola Jokic. This year, they have Jamal Murray back. They have Michael Porter Jr. Aaron Gordon is having a career year. KCP is playing out of his mind. Bruce Brown is having a great year this year. They picked up Reggie Jackson as part of the buyout market to fill that spot they ended up creating when they got rid of Bones. This is a team that needs to perform if they're going to have the three straight MVP winner in Nikola Jokic with the best team record-wise in the Western Conference and their entire roster healthy going into the postseason. Nikola Jokic, I know he falls under the radar because he's the Serbian guy that doesn't talk that much and he just puts up crazy stats and only the stat nerds really genuinely love him. But in the national media sphere, we have got to start looking at Nikola Jokic and saying, look, whether you love it or not, the dude is a multi-time MVP, and that comes with expectations. And we might need to start really placing those expectations on not only Jokic, but the Denver Nuggets. They're no longer the little engine that barely beat the Minnesota Timberwolves with Jimmy Butler and those guys, or missed barely missed the postseason when they lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves and Jimmy Butler and those guys years back as the team that was on the upcoming. No, they're in the mix now. They've got an MVP. They've got legit guys on that roster. They're in the mix now, and they've got to be treated as such.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's why we both have them on this list, because now it's not the previous years. Jamal Murray is like getting back, especially like over the last like month or so. He's been finally getting back into his groove. Michael Porter's on the team, like you mentioned all the guys. They have a complete lineup now, so really, there shouldn't be any excuses. There really shouldn't be, and they're gonna have one of the biggest microscopes on them going into this and going into the playoffs, because not only are they the number one team in like the West, they are by a pretty significant margin of 5 games. So they're definitely gonna have a lot of eyeballs on them. It's gonna be interesting to see what they're gonna be able to do come this postseason, especially because it looks like, and especially with like the Woj survey results or whatever, it looks like he's gonna be the MVP again this year. So it's definitely gonna be someone to keep an eye out on. Any thoughts on the final 2 teams, or do you want to move forward?
The East is a dogfight, bro.
Yeah.
I said it as one of my hot takes on my podcast that I have a really serious fear that the Celtics aren't going to come out of the East. I do genuinely fear that, and I think they're the best team in the Eastern Conference. But I just think that the East, when you look at all the teams that are in the playoffs right now, for the most part, outside of maybe the Atlanta Hawks, they've either got wing play or they've got guys who can fill it up. And I think even with the Hawks, if you point to Trae Young and DeJounte Murray and guys like that, I mean, there's a lot of physicality out East, bro.
Yeah.
And we saw that really take a toll on the Celtics last season. They're a much better team this year, and they play with a lot more finesse as a 3-point high-volume team like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
The question will be whether that live and die by the 3 mentality is something that's able to get them through the postseason, or if the physicality of the Eastern Conference ends up really hurting that play style. So I really am fearful for the Celtics because that live or die by the 3 play style might not necessarily match up well with the physicality across the rest of the Eastern Conference. And with the Bucks, look, bro, defensively, if you're trying out a lineup of Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, Jay Crowder, Giannis, and Brook Lopez, good freaking luck.
Oh, man.
What I'm going to say is you're going to need a lot of ice after these games because it is going to be physical. And that's not even including Bobby Portis bouncing off everybody in the offensive glass, going crazy in his spurts off the bench. So Milwaukee is going to be a tough out, especially if everybody is healthy. I think that those 2 teams are scary. But like I said, the East is going to be nuts. So I wouldn't be surprised if only one of those teams made the Eastern Conference Finals. And in a weird way, I also wouldn't be super surprised if neither team made the Eastern Conference Finals. A lot less likely, but I actually wouldn't be surprised just because of how crazy the Eastern Conference is really set up. But the Brooklyn Nets not being a powerhouse with 2 all-star guys in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving definitely does help level the playing field a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's going to be an absolute dogfight, especially like one of the Celtics, Bucks, or 76ers. Maybe two of them are gonna be going very, very disappointed into the off season. But yeah, those are our teams in our championship bubble. Let us know down below if we're missing anyone. Are we including too many teams? Let us know down below. We are now into the final segment of the show, and of course, it is becoming a tradition over here. We are doing another NBA quiz run by your host TV, with our contestant once again being Jay. For this week's quiz, it's very interesting because I feel like we talk a lot about this off camera, about just the incredible like scoring outburst in the NBA this season. Did you know there are 7 guys in the NBA right now that are like 30-point per game scorers, which is kind of insane. Like we got LeBron James, Jason Tatum, SGA, Dame Lillard, Giannis, Embiid, and Luka Doncic. 7.
Oh my God.
7 this season alone. And what's even crazier, since the 2000-2001 season, there have only been 11 different 30-point per game scorers over like just this entire millennium so far. And we have 7 this year. That is absolutely crazy. So Jay, for your quiz today, like I said, there are 11 different 30-point per game scorers since the year 2000. Can you name all 11? All these guys are like absolute buckets. Some of them are really obvious. Some you might have to think out a little bit more. But let me see if you can try and get all these guys. And I'm going to tell you how many times they scored 30 points a game in their career as well. So have at it. Name some players. Let's see if they.
Man. Okay. Let's get some of the easier ones out the way. At least I hope they're the easier ones. Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant has done it twice.
Okay.
In the millennium.
James Harden.
James Harden has done it 3 times. Yes.
Okay. Is Kobe Bryant on this list?
Yes, he has done it twice in this, and he did back-to-back seasons, which is pretty crazy. He did it in back-to-back seasons.
Okay, dope. Okay, so we're making a pretty decent push so far. Has Steph Curry done this?
Steph Curry has done it twice.
Okay. I'm gonna do my first wild card answer. Is Carmelo Anthony on this list?
Nope. The one year he had his highest scoring total was 28.7.
Okay. I think I remember what season this is too. That was that the Knicks playoff year?
Yeah.
Okay. That was the year I was going with it. That's why I was like, if it's not right, it's close.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's think. Okay. Let me go through some teams. Bradley Beal recently, right?
He's done it twice.
Yeah,
he has done it twice.
I was about to say I'm looking at teams right now. I'm not even looking at the rosters. I'm just trying teams into consideration.
You're missing last year. You're missing last year's scoring leader actually, which is pretty surprising.
Oh, last year's scoring leader. Oh, okay. Wait. Oh, is Embiid on this list?
Yes, Embiid. He was he scored 30.
Okay, I wasn't sure we were including guys who are also in this group. Okay.
No. Okay. They are, but they have to do it before the season too. So yeah. So.
Oh, okay. Got you. Oh, this might be on a limb, but I'm gonna guess it anyway. Has Giannis done it before?
No, he hasn't. This is first year averaging over 30.
Okay, I'm sure he's probably been close as well.
So you've gone 6 so far.
How many guys am I at right now?
So you have 6 so far. So you have 5 more. You have 5 more left. You have a lot of guys. You're missing quite a bit from the Kobe era, and I think you're missing one guy from basically who is still playing. You're missing I think you're missing 2 current players and 3 retired. Yeah, 3 retired players.
Okay. Dumb question: is LeBron James on this list?
There you go. He's done it twice.
Okay, there you go. I felt like that was a bucket, but I just wanted to make sure. Another random guest that falls in there is Tracy McGrady on this list.
He did it once in 2002.
Okay.
Did it once in 2002.
Excellent.
There you go.
Love to see it.
So you have 3 more left. You have the one of the guys you're missing has done it the most in the millennium. He has done it 4 times, over 30 points per game.
Oh, dang, and we already got Kevin James and Steph out of here. And he's done it the most?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
He is very unassuming, but he's I don't want to say it. It's gonna give it away. But he's
wait. No.
What?
Wait. Is you said from 2000, right? Is Allen Iverson on this list?
He's the one who's done it the most times, 4 times in his career, over 30 points per game.
I had to remember what year we were starting from because I got to remember not all of these guys are going to be current. Yeah, duh. AI. I mean, come on, his team was built for him to get the.
Yeah. Also, shout out to AI. 3 times he's led the league in scoring. This guy was nuts. So you're missing 2 more players.
Okay.
Both of these guys have done it once. Both of these guys have done it once.
Both of these guys have done it.
One of the guys was actually a pretty big topic on the show earlier when we were talking about kind of especially teams that are potentially in the championship bubble. He has done it once. Very polarizing. Extremely polarizing.
Oh man. Wait. Jason Tatum hasn't averaged 30 before.
No, he hasn't.
Yeah. Jason Tatum hasn't averaged 30.
I'll tell you this. The team he currently plays on is not in my championship bubble. So he's one from like one of the 3 teams that you mentioned.
Oh. Interesting. Oh wow. Is Paul George on the list?
Nope. A teammate of Paul George, though. A teammate of Paul George.
Oh my! Wait, chill. Wait, Kawhi's averaged 30?
Nope.
What?
No.
Wait a minute. Now I'm lost.
No, you're not. No, you're not. You got this. You're right on it. You're right on it.
No, it's the Russ year.
It's the Russ year. It's the MVP Russ year.
Oh my God! I forgot how OD that year was.
Yep, he did it once, and you're missing one more player. He
current? Is he current?
Nope. He retired pretty recently. I think like 2 or 3 years ago. He has like surprisingly some like really close ties to the Utah All-Star game this year. He was like everywhere in terms of like just doing stuff around the Utah All-Star weekend. Just because he's maybe part of the organization.
Oh snap! What the heck?
And I think he's like, and he's played for your team for a bit, but when you think of the name,
oh my God, TV! I know who it is. And this is OG version. Dwayne Wade has to be on this list.
Dwayne Wade
has to be. That's OG Dwayne. That's the Flash Dwayne Wade right there.
Yeah, Dwayne Wade. Yeah, he did it once in his career. Those are the 11. So I mean, it's crazy, right? Like we have 7 different guys this year, and there's been just 11 different players who've done it since the year 2000. It just shows to create how world. Like you're talking about OD this season in terms of scoring has been completely OD. So yeah. So yeah, I mean that's a pretty fun quiz. If there's any, if you have any more ideas for these type of quizzes, let us know down below. I'd love to hear some. But I'm gonna be turning out these quizzes every week. It's definitely a fun time, and this one was definitely fun, especially looking at how crazy this season has been. So if you have any ideas, let us know down below. But I think this is where we're gonna end today's episode. Thank you guys for watching or listening. Remember to show love on any of the podcast channels for us. Anchor, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. Remember to subscribe on YouTube, and also hit the notification bell so you won't miss an episode. And remember to follow at Hit Your Free Throws Pod on Instagram and Twitter. Jay, any other words for the lovely people as we sign out?
Guys, we're buckling up for the playoffs, man. It's less than 30 games. We are on the road to the postseason. Me and TV have planned out so much content already that it's kind of ridiculous. Like you mentioned beforehand, in terms of the TikTok page, the Hit Your Free Throws podcast is starting to get a little bit more creative as we go along in terms of some of the challenges that we're doing on that page, as well as trying to cover some of the breaking news that's taking place throughout the NBA over the course of the year. Postseason time, we are going to be locked in something different. So continue to join this journey with us as we continue to work towards the NBA playoffs, because I'm telling you, if you think the content is already pretty solid as it is, when we get into heavy competitive basketball mode, man, oh man, things are they're gonna continue to get more and more interesting as the days go on.
Yeah, and be ready for all of that. But again, thank you guys for listening to today's episode. See you guys next week for next week's episode. This is TV signing out. This is Jay. This is the end of the episode. Thank you guys for watching. Have a nice day, all. Peace.